Everyone remembers the giant stone walls of Great Zimbabwe, but almost no one knows the story of the clever Porcupine Spirit that kept those walls safe. Welcome back. Today I'm going to tell you an incredible story. It's not just a story about ancient battles. It's about how a group of people looked at a small, prickly animal and learned how to survive against impossible odds. We are going to see how the Shona people copied nature to create the cleverest traps in Southern Africa. Forget the boring history books. Let's uncover the real story of the Nungu Ngara, the porcupine totem. The family shield. Imagine living hundreds of years ago. The world is dangerous. Invaders are everywhere. To the Shona people, the Nungu, the porcupine, wasn't just a wild animal. It was a teacher. What do I mean? It was a teacher. We will come back to this and show you the lessons they learned. But before that, let's put everything into context. What are totems? In Shona culture, families have a totem called a mutupo. Think of it like a family superhero symbol, but much deeper. If you belonged to the Ngara family, the porcupine squill meant two things. Firstly, it was your weapon to fight with. Secondly, it was a magical fence that kept your family safe. Honoring their ancestors wasn't just about praying. It was their secret weapon. When the warriors fought, they did not just fight as men. They believed they were filled with the spirit of the mighty porcupine. They became a living, breathing shield. The trap in the stones. Look at these massive stone walls. When people from other countries first saw them, they couldn't believe who built them. But they totally missed the clever trick hidden right in the rocks. The outside of the city looked smooth and welcoming, but the inside, it was built with sharp, jagged corners. It was built to look exactly like a porcupine when it's angry and puffed up. See these tight, winding doorways. They were traps. They forced the enemy army to walk in a single line right into a dead end. It was like a predator foolishly crawling into a porcupine's dark den. The Ngara people lived by a simple rule: don't start fight, let them come to you. The fortress never attacked first, it just waited. And when the bad guys pushed too deep into the den, the quills came out. The prickly ball of spears. But what if they had to fight out in the open grass? They used a trick that worked perfectly every time. The warriors would stand in a tight circle and push their incredibly long spears outward. Just like the porcupine protecting its soft belly, they created a giant, deadly ball of spikes. You simply couldn't touch them. This was also a huge mind game. The warriors actually wore real porcupine quills in their hair into battle. It was a warning sign that said, if you touch us, you are going to bleed. Because they stayed tight together like a prickly bow, a tiny group of Shona warriors could beat armies that were 5 times their size. They did not need more men, they just needed to be smarter. The backwards attack. So what does a porcupine do when it has to run? It doesn't just run away scared. It actually runs backwards right into whatever is chasing it. The warriors copied this perfectly. They would pretend to be scared and run away. The enemy would chase them into the thick, dark woods. Then the Shona would suddenly turn around and attack when the enemy was trapped in the trees. And as they ran, they left surprises behind. Hidden traps, holes, and poisoned spikes were left in the grass. If you chased the porcupine people, you stepped on their dropped quills. They turned the whole forest into a weapon. A trick that lasted forever. This isn't just an old fairy tale. Hundreds of years later, when modern wars were fought for freedom in Africa, soldiers used these exact same tricks, hiding, waiting, and using the forest against the enemy. To this day, for the children and grandchildren of the Shona, the porcupine isn't just a cute animal, it's a symbol of surviving when the whole world is against you. Even modern armies study this today. It goes to show that watching nature can teach us how to keep our neighborhoods and families safe even right now. More than just fighters. But here is the real secret. The porcupine totem wasn't just about wars and traps. It was actually a beautiful rule book for how to treat people. It kept the whole family together for centuries. Let's look at the softer side of the quills. Why the porcupine? The old stories say the ancestors chose the porcupine because it minds its own business. It survives in the toughest deserts and forests. It likes to be left alone, but it knows exactly how to protect itself. The Ngara family wanted to be just like that. They settled in the rocky hills, building their lives to be peaceful, strong, and unbreakable, just like the animal they loved. Keeping the family strong. This totem was their ultimate law, the biggest rule of all. You could never ever marry someone with the same porcupine totem as you. You had to marry someone from a different animal family like the lion or the elephant. This was a brilliant idea. It meant families could not marry too close to their own blood, keeping babies healthy. And because you married into a new animal family, you made friends all over the country. Being a porcupine meant you promised to be peaceful when left alone, to protect your family fiercely, and to always do the right thing. It was a promise you made to your grandfathers. How to say sorry. When people got into arguments, they did not have the police force or jails. They went to the elders under the tree to settle things. But before anyone could even start arguing, they had to introduce themselves using poetry. Porcupine praise poem or Nungu, madetembedzo. Wamambo, maita nungu yangu iyi, maita chipiri mukwasha wamambo, hekani maposa, chirashamiwa, masvingo agovere, maita chikandamina weshanu uri pauta, maita vari chirungurira, manjekechera vari gokomere, chizuza changu chichi, maita nungu, hananda zimboora, mazviita, varusvingo namazambara vakafura dombo nomuseve rikabuda ropa, vamupumbu voko pachirimo rave zhizha vofura shangwa, vakadzidzisa vanhu kutunge timbwa, vokutora mapadzo avanhu vachindoise mugomo, vachibata wanike yangova mihwa yoga. Nungu yangu iyi mushaya chirashwa, minungu ndengara, nyama usaviwa vamwe, dewe richiseveswazve, maita vari govere, masvingo angu zimwaya, zimuto wangu yuyu. This is called Chidao praise poetry, kudetemba mutupo wao. So when you stood up to speak, you recited a beautiful poem about who your great-grandfathers were. It was a way of proving your identity and showing respect to the court. It was like showing your ID card, but way cooler. Today, if you do something wrong, you might go to jail. The goal is to punish you, but the Porcupine people believed in fixing the hurt. If you stole or fought, the goal was to make things right again, to pull the quill out of the wound so the whole village could heal and be friends again. Forgetting and remembering. As time passed, big cities were built. People were told to leave their villages. They were told their animal totems were silly old stories. But remember, the porcupine survives everything. Today, thousands of young people are using Facebook, WhatsApp, and TikTok to find their roots again. They are searching for their lost families. In a big, lonely modern world, these young people are realizing that knowing their totem gives them a giant family that spans the whole globe. They are never truly alone.
When you meet someone with your totem, you've found a brother or sister, regardless of the chidao. When you meet someone...
A lesson for tomorrow. So why does the porcupine matter today? Because if you believe your family is tied to an animal, you fight to protect the forest it lives in. This old tradition is actually helping save the environment today. Kids today are grabbing onto these old stories to feel grounded. Knowing your history makes you feel strong. It reminds you that you belong somewhere. So what is your story? So here is my question for you. Do you know your family story? If you don't call your grandparents, ask them. Write it down before the story is forgotten. You have to be the bridge that carries the story from the past to your children. So where do we find the Nungu Ngara people today? If you are wondering where the descendants of the Nungu Ngara or Porcupine family are today, they are mostly found in Zimbabwe, especially in the Masvingo province. The Zimuto family. This is one of the most famous groups with the porcupine totem. They are the traditional leaders in the areas right next to Great Zimbabwe ruins. Then the chief Nemauje, another big part of the family, lives in the Chivi district. They are known by a cool nickname Wamambo, which means in-laws of the king, because they used to be married to ancient royalty. All over the world, because people move for jobs and new lives, you can now find the porcupine people, often with the last names like Maposa, Zimuto, or Chikandamina, living everywhere from the big cities of Zimbabwe to South Africa, the UK and America. The family is spread all over the globe. Just to round up, I have a few words to say about the animal that always survives, the porcupine. People usually think ancient history is just random battles, but the Shona people of Great Zimbabwe show us something beautiful and clever. They did not just fight. They looked at nature, learned its secrets, and built a whole society around a little prickly animal. They turned quills into a way to save their people. The porcupine never starts the fight, but the porcupine always survives. Thanks for listening to the story. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, if your family was an animal, what would it be? See you next time.